Why don't you just disappear? My stepdaughter Stella snapped at me during one of the worst arguments we'd ever had. Her voice was sharp, cold, and hurtful. And then Delilah, my wife, joined in. We'd be better off without you. I didn't respond. I just packed my bags. This morning, my phone lit up with 13 missed calls. 13. Something felt off the moment I stepped into the house. It was too quiet. Way too quiet for a Sunday morning. I glanced around, trying to piece together what was wrong. And then I saw it. Every family photo on the wall, every single one, was different. I stepped closer to the one above the fireplace, the one from our Yellowstone trip last summer. But when I looked at it, I noticed something odd. It was there, but I wasn't in it. In fact, none of the pictures I had been in over the past 3 years were hanging on the walls anymore. My stomach sank. I stood there, coffee cup growing cold in my hand, just staring at the emptiness. That's when I heard it. Stella's door upstairs closing softly, her footsteps at the top of the stairs. She knew I was awake. For a second there was hesitation. Then she walked down, her phone in her hand, deliberately avoiding my gaze as she passed through the kitchen. "Morning," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Silence. 3 years. That's how long I'd been in Stella's life. 3 years of trying to do the right thing, of building trust, offering guidance, stepping back when I needed to. But now, at 16, she was pulling away in ways I hadn't expected. I thought I was ready for typical teenage rebellion. But this felt different. It started last week when I offered to help her with a chemistry project. She'd been struggling, and I thought maybe I could help her out. Her response was like a slap to the face. "Stop pretending you care about my grades. You're not my real dad." I've heard versions of that before, but this time it was different. Her tone was harsh, deliberate. It stung more than it should have. Delilah, my wife, was in the kitchen. Probably heard everything, but she didn't say a word. That silence. It said everything. The tension had been building for a week now. Small things, dishes left in the sink with pointed looks, doors slammed a little too hard, conversations that stopped whenever I walked into the room. I tried talking to Delilah about it, but she deflected every time. "She's just being a teenager, Thomas. Don't make it about you." But last night, it all exploded. Stella was texting at dinner, breaking our usual rule about phones. I reminded her gently, but she snapped. "God, why are you always policing everything I do? Why can't you just leave me alone?" "Stella," I started, "I'm just trying to..." "To what? Play dad? I already have one." She stood up, knocking her chair back with a loud scrape. "Why don't you just disappear? Nobody asked you to try so hard. It's pathetic." I looked at Delilah, expecting something, support at least. But when she set down her fork and said, quietly, "Maybe we'd all be better off if you did," it felt like the floor dropped out from under me. 3 years of memories flashed through my mind. The day Stella laughed at one of my dad jokes. The night she called me when her first boyfriend broke up with her. The proud look Delilah gave me when Stella asked me, not her mom, to help pick out her prom dress. I stood up slowly, my stomach twisting. "Okay," I said, barely above a whisper. "Okay?" Stella challenged, her voice tinged with something, uncertainty maybe, but there was something else there too, a flicker of regret. Or maybe she was just trying to hold on to control. "If that's how you both feel..." I walked upstairs to our bedroom and grabbed my old duffel bag. I could hear them whispering downstairs, but no one came up. As I packed, I realized my hands weren't shaking. I felt strangely calm. When I came downstairs, Stella was gone, probably hiding in her room. Delilah stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. "So you're just leaving? That's your solution?" she asked, her voice laced with frustration. "You said we'd be better off," I replied, checking for my keys and wallet. "I'm respecting that." "That's not..." She stopped herself, like she was holding back a bigger thought, but I could see the pride, or maybe anger, in her eyes. I picked up my bag and made my way toward the door. I'll be at Ryan's. I'll figure out something more permanent soon. Before I stepped out, I paused. You know, when Stella said those things before, it hurt. But I didn't leave because of that. I left because she doesn't need me anymore. Neither of you do. But hearing you agree? That broke something inside Del. I drove to Ryan's place in silence. He took one look at me and set up the guest room without a single question. That's the kind of friend he is. I turned off my phone, grabbed a sleeping pill from the emergency stash in my travel kit, and let the darkness take me. This morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. When I finally turned on my phone, it exploded with notifications. 13 missed calls, 8 from Delilah, 3 from Stella, 2 from Quinn, my sister, 27 text messages, 4 voicemails. I haven't listened to them yet. Now I'm sitting in Ryan's guest room, staring out at the morning traffic below, thinking about those empty spaces in our family photos. Maybe they were always there, and I just didn't want to see them. My phone buzzes again. It's Stella. After everything that happened, I find myself staring at her name on the screen, wondering what could possibly be so urgent now. But I'm not ready. Not yet. Sometimes the hardest part isn't walking away. It's knowing if you should walk back. Update 1. First, thank you all for the supportive comments on my last post. I didn't expect such an overwhelming response. To address the most common questions: yes, I've read the messages. No, I haven't replied to any of them yet. And yes, I'm still at Ryan's. This morning started like the others. Me pretending to focus on work while actually staring at my phone, wondering if I should break the silence. Then Ryan dropped a bomb over breakfast. Miles is back in town, he said, sliding his phone across the table. There, on Facebook, was a photo of Stella's biological father, tagged at a local restaurant 2 weeks ago. The same Miles who hasn't paid child support in 3 years. The same Miles who missed Stella's last 4 birthdays. Suddenly, the timing of everything started to make sense. I scrolled through my texts again. Delilah's messages had evolved from angry, real mature Thomas, running away instead of talking, to concerned, please just let us know you're okay, to something much more complex. Her latest read: there's something you need to know. It's Stella. Please call. Quinn showed up around lunch, coffee in hand, and that no-nonsense look she gets when she's about to meddle in my life. You look like hell, she announced, dropping onto Ryan's couch. Thanks. Always good to see you too, sis. She didn't smile. I ran into Stella at the mall yesterday. That got my attention. How is she? She was meeting Miles for coffee. Didn't see me. Quinn watched me closely. Her eyes filled with that hopeful look, like when she's trying to contain excitement about something she knows could go either way. I knew exactly what that look meant. It was the same look Stella had when she was accepted into that summer program last year, as if she was afraid to believe something good could really happen. Did you know Miles has been messaging her for months? Quinn continued. He's promising to make things right this time. My stomach twisted. I checked Stella's Instagram, something I rarely do. Her latest post was a photo of her and Miles, captioned, "Real family time." The comments were full of heart emojis from her friends, none of whom knew the history there. Ryan, who'd been quietly listening, spoke up. Remember what happened last time he showed up, when Stella was 13? I did. Miles had swept in with grand promises, lasted 2 weeks, then disappeared again. Stella didn't get out of bed for days afterward. Delilah and I spent months rebuilding her trust, convincing her she was enough, that she deserved better. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Delilah. He's asking her to move in with him. She's actually considering it. Please, Thomas, I know you're angry with me, but she needs you. I started typing several responses, but deleted them all. What could I say? Sorry, you told me to disappear, but now you need me to reappear? The whole situation felt like a cruel joke. Then came another notification. Stella's new Instagram story. A picture of college brochures spread across her bed with the caption, "Big change is coming." Hearing that, everything inside me twisted into knots. The same damn pattern. Miles had always been about taking from us, taking from Delilah, and now it seemed like he was taking from Stella. "Let me guess," I said, my voice tight. "He asked her for money for his startup." Delilah's eyes flickered, like she didn't want to admit it, but she didn't deny it either. "I'm so sorry, Thomas. I didn't know until now. Stella, she said she'd give him whatever he needs to get it off the ground. She even said she could ask you for the money." I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth. The last time Miles had promised a sure thing, Delilah had nearly drained our savings to back him up, only for the business to crash within months. And now he was back. Again. With his manipulative promises. This time, he had Stella. And she was believing him. The thought of her, my stepdaughter, who I'd watched grow up, who I'd stayed up late with working on homework and comforting after her heartbreaks, now buying into the same empty dreams, it hurt in a way I couldn't fully explain. "I'm going to talk to her," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Delilah nodded. "Please, I don't know what to do anymore. She's not listening to me, and I know." The words hung heavy between us. And for a moment, I felt the weight of everything that had fallen apart in the last few days. It wasn't just Stella. It was us. I drove to Stella's, my mind racing with a million thoughts. How had we gotten here? How had she gone from my little girl, the one who used to look to me for guidance, to this? When I pulled up to her place, I could see her through the window, sitting at her desk, her head down, lost in her phone again. The same phone she'd been glued to when she'd said those cruel words to me days before. I knocked on the door, waiting, the silence stretching on longer than I expected. Finally, the door cracked open, and Stella's face appeared. Her eyes were puffy, her usual confident posture crumpled. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a breath, trying to hold it together. "We need to talk, Stella." Her shoulders tensed, and she stepped back, crossing her arms over her chest. "About what?" "About everything," I said, pushing the door open a little more, stepping inside. "You think running away to Miles is the answer? It's not. I know what he's doing, and I'm not going to let you get hurt again." Her eyes flickered, uncertainty clouding her expression for a split second. But then the walls went back up. "You don't get it. Miles is different. He actually cares about me." "Does he?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. "Does he really care? Or is he using you? Because that's what he does. He's always used people, and now he's using you." Her lips trembled slightly. "You're just angry. I'm not like you. I don't need you telling me what to do anymore." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'm not trying to tell you what to do, Stella. I'm trying to help you see the truth. You're being manipulated, and I don't want to watch you make the same mistake over and over again." She stayed silent, her gaze dropping to the floor. Finally, after what felt like hours, she looked back up at me. "You don't understand. I need him, Thomas. I need to be with him. No, I interrupted. What you need is people who really love you. People who have been there for you, who've stayed for you. You're not alone in this. Not with me, not with your mom, not with Quinn. You're never alone, but you have to want to see that." Her face crumpled, and for the first time since all this started, I saw the girl I used to know, the one who needed her family. "Please," I whispered, "let me help you before it's too late." Her eyes were wide, a mix of disbelief and guilt. "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, my voice lowering. "He's targeting families, Stella. It's a scam. He's using you, using your friends, to get to their parents. He's been doing it for years." Stella's face turned pale, her hand gripping the spoon so tightly I thought it might break. "But he told me he was trying to make things right. He's trying to make up for everything. For me." I shook my head, the anger that had been building inside me finally surfacing. "I get that you want to believe him. I understand that. You want to fill the empty space he left, but you can't let him use you like this. You're not just his pawn in some business scheme. Stella looked away, her fingers trembling as she wiped her eyes. I thought if I just helped him, things would be different. That maybe we could finally be a real family. We already are a real family, Stella, I said softly. Not because of Miles, not because of anyone else, but because of the people who have always been here for you. Your mom, your friends, and me. That's what family is. It's the people who show up, not the ones who leave or use you. She stayed quiet for a moment, processing what I said. The weight of the situation seemed to settle over her, and she finally met my eyes. I messed up, didn't I? You didn't mess up, I said, trying to calm her down. You were just trying to find something good. But sometimes the hardest thing is recognizing when you're being lied to. And it's okay to admit that. You're not alone in this. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable anymore. She seemed to be listening, really listening, for the first time in a while. I'm sorry, Thomas, she whispered, her voice breaking. I should have seen it sooner. I thought I could trust him, but I don't know anymore. I just wanted a family. I put a hand on her shoulder. I know. And you have one. You've always had one. There was a pause before she looked at me again, this time with something new in her eyes. Realization. What do I do now? I smiled, though it felt more like relief. You don't have to do anything alone. We'll figure this out. Together. And for the first time in days, I felt like we might be able to start putting things back together. That night, everything felt different. Stella stayed up late talking to me, letting everything out. And for the first time, I felt like we were on the same team again. But I knew this was just the beginning. There were still hurdles ahead. Miles wouldn't just walk away, not after everything he'd tried to build. And Delilah, well, she'd have her own questions to answer. But for now, things were quiet. I thought back to what Stella had said earlier in the night about her old dance classes and those late-night ice cream runs. And I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the hardest conversations start with the smallest steps. Or in this case, with mint chocolate chip ice cream at midnight. I took the papers from her, scanning the lines she'd written with care. Her words were honest, raw, and courageous. Everything I'd hoped for when she finally realized what Miles had been doing. She'd poured herself into that statement, capturing the hurt, the confusion, and the strength that had carried her through the storm. Stella, this is amazing, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You've really captured everything, what he took from you and what you're reclaiming. This is your voice, and it's powerful. She looked at me, eyes shining, a soft smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I couldn't have done it without you, Thomas. You were right all along. He wasn't my family. You are. I set the papers down on the table, leaning back in my chair. The weight of everything we'd been through hung in the air, but there was something new now, something lighter, a sense of resolution, healing. And for the first time in a long while, I believed in the possibility of things truly getting better. After a long pause, I asked, Are you sure about everything, Stella? About what you want to say in this statement? She nodded, determination filling her voice. I am. I need him to know what he did. But more than that, I need to tell everyone what real family means. What you've always shown me. I could feel my heart swell. You've grown so much through all this. You're stronger than you think. Stella looked at me, a mixture of pride and gratitude in her gaze. I think I finally get it, Thomas. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you when things get tough, who shows up when you need them most. I smiled back at her, that familiar proud smile. That's right, kiddo. The conversation shifted after that, the weight of the past few weeks easing off both our shoulders. We planned to head to the investigators later that morning, but before we left, she looked at me one more time. Hey, Thomas, she said softly. Yeah? Thanks for not giving up on me. I know I pushed you away, But you didn't give up on me. I squeezed her shoulder. Your family, Stella. I'm never giving up on you. And just like that, a chapter of our lives closed. The scars would remain, but the healing had already begun. And somewhere in the midst of all the chaos, in the aftermath of lies and betrayal, we found our way back to each other. Stronger, clearer, and more certain than ever of what it truly meant to be a family. As we headed out to deliver the evidence, I couldn't help but think back to those late-night ice cream runs. Simple moments that seemed so insignificant at the time, but now, they meant the world. Can we get ice cream after? Stella had asked earlier, and that small request felt like everything was finally falling into place. Because sometimes, after everything falls apart, a little bit of ice cream and a lot of honesty is exactly what you need to start putting the pieces back together. It needs a good ending, she said. Something that shows I'm not just his victim anymore. I think she's already found that ending. It's in the way she holds her head up now, and how she's helping other kids spot similar scams in the college brochures back on her desk. Her real path, not the one Miles tried to sell her. Sometimes moving forward means making sure the people who can't hurt anyone else don't get the chance to. And sometimes the best revenge isn't just watching someone face consequences. It's thriving despite them. We're having a family dinner tonight. Just the three of us. Stella's making her famous pasta sauce, the one she learned from watching cooking videos with me during lockdown. Normal, boring, wonderful family stuff. The kind of stuff Miles will have plenty of time to think about from his cell.